Good evening, my friends. I welcome you to a talk on the export trade practice. At the outset, it is a dire need to know the term foreign trade. Foreign trade refers to the trade between various nations across the world. This foreign trade is also called as international trade or global trade, otherwise cross-border trade. This foreign trade promotes understanding and bilateral relations among various nations in the world. And this foreign trade will be a source of income and which will add furthermore and develop the level of national income. At this juncture, we are required to know the different components involved in this foreign trade. This foreign trade is comprising of the following three aspects, namely import trade, next one export trade, and the third one entry pot trade. Now we have to know the meaning of export trade. Export trade means it refers to the goods and services which are produced or manufactured in a country will be used in the particular country where the goods and services so produced or manufactured are available in surplus, say in an abundant manner. The surplus can be sold out to those who are needing those goods and services. Considering the demand for such goods and services, and thus by selling them, we will earn foreign exchange currency to our country. This will promote our national income. In addition to this, the bilateral relations like cultural, trade, and friendly understanding with other nations in the world will also be improved. Now, we are required to know the meaning of exporter. Exporter is a person who is the seller of goods and services in the foreign trade. Generally, in the domestic trade or otherwise called home trade, the seller of the goods and services to the buyers. Whereas in this export trade, the buyers and sellers will reside in different locations, say different nations of the world, and that the seller will have to follow the prescribed rules and practices for obtaining all permissions and comply with the procedures which are in vogue. So, to start with, we must be aware of the trade practices being followed in the export of goods. We will consider all the aspects in a step-by-step manner. They are in the order of number 1, receipt of order or intent from the importer. Second one, obtaining of license from the government for the export of goods to other countries. Third one being compliance with foreign exchange regulations being followed in the nation where export is taking place. Maybe it is a place of origin for this export trade. Next comes packing and markings over the goods which are being meant for shipment. Next one is the obtaining of LOC from the bankers. This is called LOCs, letter of credit, which is obtained from the banker of the importing country. Then comes the obtaining of shipping order, followed by insurance. Next comes certificate of origin, consular invoice, customs formalities, maid's receipt, bill of lading, and preparing the invoice for securing the payments from the concerned parties. We will discuss all these aspects one by one in an elaborative manner. As we see, the first and foremost step is the receipt of intent from the person, say importer, who is requisitioning for the supply of goods. This intent is normally placed by the importer directly through some of these agents who are functioning as middlemen, or sometimes directly importer will also contact the exporter and place the intent. In this document, the information pertaining to the details of description of goods, packing, shipping details, insurance, quality, quantity, price, and mode of securing payments will be mentioned. Now, we will see that in this indents, there are two types, namely open indent and closed indent. An open indent is one where the choice of quality and selection of goods will be given to the exporter in this process of supply of goods by export. Whereas in a closed intent, the choice lies with the importer, and the exporter has to send only those goods which are clearly specified by the importer, and there should not be any variation in the goods in the process of export. Second stage is the obtaining of license from the respective government. As we know, the goods and services which are produced and manufactured in a country are usually subjected to certain controls from the government. In this case, the exporter should verify from the list of goods meant for open general license or free goods. In the case of free goods, there will not be any problem in supplying to other countries by way of export. If these are under the open general category and not the free goods, then the exporter is required to obtain from the government consent for export of those goods from the controller of exports and imports stationed in the particular nation. Third step being foreign exchange regulation compliances. After obtaining the license from the controller of exports and imports, he will be contacting the concerned national central bank, which is similar to the Reserve Bank in India, a banker to banker and advisor to the government, which is affects in the banking structure of that nation. Now, the exporter should also make a declaration to the effect that he will surrender the entire foreign exchange to the extent of the full value of the export value of the goods. Of course, he will be paid in return the amount equivalent in value in the native currency of the nation which supplied the goods. Next comes fourth point, which is packing and markings. These are very important because clear packing and markings are to be given in the instructions in the shipping of goods. Accordingly, shipping charges will be levied depending on the weight and space occupied by the said packings. So, the exporter has to ensure special care to see that maximum quantity of goods are accommodated with minimum space and more and more safely packed containers are there. Thereafter, he should follow the instructions given by importer regarding packing. After fulfilling all such instructions, when once goods are packed, it should be duly marked with details such as name of the importer, mailing details with contract phone numbers, details such as payment of goods, duly giving the tear weight, gross weight, and net weight of the goods in export. The fifth step is the obtaining of the LOC. The term LOC stands for letter of credit. Generally, the exporter will be requesting the importer to produce a letter of credit from a reputed banker, because the importers reside in a different location and exporters also from different location. Basically, this letter of credit is a document which contains an undertaking by the banker to honor the bills of exchange drawn by the exporter on the imports for a specified amount. It is like a bank guarantee given by the bankers residing in importing nation. In this case, the bankers will also insist on pre-deposit of the said amounts along with exchange and commission for this purpose of issuing the letter of credit to the importer for his onward transmission to the exporter. Next comes the sixth step is to obtaining the shipping order. This shipping order is a document which is meant for booking of sufficient space for the shipment of goods by the exporter to the place of destination where the importer resides, say that country, by contacting the concerned shipping agency or company operating those merchant vessels. In case if the shipping company agrees to carry the load of goods to the port of destination, it will readily issue an order called shipping order. This will have instructions to the captain of the ship to receive the goods from the exporter on board of the ship. The next step is the marine insurance policy. It is a mandatory requisite. The exporter will take a marine insurance policy with a view to ensure the goods and takes a protection in the form of financial coverage against unforeseen contingencies or risks in the form of perils in the sea or dangers like icebergs which will hit and crash the vessels, and in case of cyclonic storms or burglary or otherwise looting of the vessels by the sea pirates, as we all see in our English movies. Really, the marine insurance policy will help the exporter in shielding a cover of protection against the all possible risks or perils in the process of shipment en route to the place of destination. Next comes the certificate of origin. Now, we need to know that a certificate of origin is a document. It will be produced among the nations which are having friendly relations and understanding with the bilateral trade agreements, where these goods are subjected to lower rates of tariff. Now, in case the importer wishes to avail the import duties at lesser rates, then he will be required to prove that the goods are produced from the friendly nations. In general, this certificate of origin is issued by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or otherwise traders associations which are affiliated and recognized by the government for the purpose of certifying the fact of the matter that the goods are produced in the same nation. Next step is to obtain the consular invoice. Here, it is very important at the outset to acquaint with the term consular. A consular is an official representing the governmental authorities working in the consulate offices in various nations where consulate offices, embassies, high commissions are operating from the Department of Ministry of Foreign Affairs or External Affairs. This consular invoice is a document which is signed by an authority given competency to sign. He is a consular. If he is satisfied, then he will sign and allow the exporters to export the goods to the country which is importing. Next comes the customs formalities. Customs are the duties being levied on the exports or imports in the international trade by the various governments. Now, the exporter has to fulfill certain formalities with a view to get the clearance from the concerned customs authorities by following all the norms prescribed therewith. Generally, the bills will be prepared in triplicate and submitted to the customs authorities for the further process. Now, here it is a prerequisite to see that the customs authorities are satisfied both in quality and quantity and with compliance in all other aspects for the purpose of permitting the goods for export, without which the customs, if do not give clearance, the export will be halted. Next comes the 11th document, the mate's receipt. The exporter may deliver the goods to the dockyard authorities or to the captain of the vessel which is carrying the goods meant for shipment. If the goods are delivered to the dock authorities, a dock warrant will be issued. A dock warrant will be serving like an acknowledgement for the goods received. If the goods are delivered direct to the mate of the ship, then he will issue a certificate called mate's receipt. There are two types of mate's receipt. One is dirty or foul receipt, and second one is clean mate receipt. Generally, a clean receipt is one where the packing and other marks are intact and no remarks are there, then same will be issued. In case there are any defects with respect to the packing, the mate of the ship will mention the same in the receipt, and the said receipt is called a dirty or foul mate receipt. Next one is the 12th document, bill of lading. It's very important document. A bill of lading is an official receipt issued by the shipping agency for the goods meant for shipment in the vessels. It will contain an undertaking to carry the goods to the port of destination. It's a mandated document wherein the export trade will be permitted, and without which the goods will not be permitted for shipment. It is given in a prescribed format, duly signed by the shipping authorities by affixing a stamp therein. Now, I think it's better to have a look at the contents of the bill of lading. As we have discussed earlier, it's a very important document. It contains the following data. Number one, the name of the exporter with the mailing address and contact details. Second one, particulars of goods which are in shipment. Number three is the description of markings and packing with quantity and numbers in packages. Fourth one being the port of destination. Fifth one is the name of the ship or merchant vessel which is carrying the goods. And sixth one is the place of the ship where from it is being meant for shipment. Next comes the name of the importer with mailing address and contact details. Next, place of loading and freight, payment, and all other details will be mentioned. Last but not least, the signature of the competent authority will be there. The last step in this process is to prepare the invoice and secure payments. Here, an invoice is nothing but a bill containing the particulars of the goods with details such as quantity, quality, rate, and total amount payable, etc. On the basis of letter of credit, the exporter draws bills of exchange against the LOC and withdraws money from the banker who has issued that letter of credit. Then the exporter draws the bills of exchange on the importer for the amount shown in the invoice. The documents such as bills of lading, certificate of origin, consular invoice are attached to the bills of exchange. Then it is known as a documentary bill. This documentary bill has to be sent by the exporter to the importer's bank through his bank for collection. Whereas in case of emergency, the exporter requires his banker to get the bill discounted and receive the payment. But this will be done only after taking a letter of hypothecation. Now, we need to know about the letter of hypothecation. It is a document written in undertaking in the form of a promise or order to pay the money. This is a document signed by the exporter authorizing the banks to sell away the goods to recover the amount in the event of any dishonor by the importer. Once the entire process is completed and on securing payments from the concerned banker, the exporter has to hand over all the amount to Reserve Bank, where a foreign exchange branch is specially functioning to look after this aspect, and he will get the equivalent currency from his country at the prevailing rates of foreign exchange as specified by the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs every day. With this, we conclude this talk. Thank you very much.